that impoverished mindset, it dictated kind of our family and us and what we were. And I just remember wanting something different.
Hey guys, welcome to Speak Audibly's 100% Me podcast. It is your friend, your host, Coach Mike T. And today I am with Mr. Vinnie Fisher. Now, Vinnie is the CEO of the outsourced e-commerce accounting company, Fully Accountable. And now let me tell you why I'm really excited to get into this with you. You see, Vinnie has been for almost 20 years now, just building businesses. Like that's what he does, that's who he is. And Vinnie, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing better now that I'm with you, Mike. You've got a
Man.
bundle of energy. I can see why people pay attention to your show. And so I'm thankful to be one of those people involved. And so thanks for having me today, Mike.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like I said, when I seen your name come across the screen and I began to do a little research, I was like, okay, no, being that we love to be a platform for business owners and high achievers, you're the kind of individual that I already know. And I'm so excited about getting into this, but that our audience, this audience right here for Speak Audibly's 100% Me podcast, they're going to love you. They're going to need you. They're going to want you. They're going to stalk you. I'm going to stalk you. So I'm excited to jump into this. So before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and your business.
Yeah, so I'm probably one of my wonderful, proudest accomplishments is I'm a husband of 25 years to Debbie.
Awesome.
We have developed a best friendship over that time, which is super awesome. So that doesn't make automatic, but I'm so thankful for that. And then we have, she hates this joke, but we've had sex at least 4 times because we have 4 beautiful children. And so we have 4 teenagers in our home who are practicing adults. And so that's the core of my life, Mike. And I have the great privilege of being a leader there and a leader in our marriage, a leader in our community. And then I also have an organization as well as a portfolio. Deb and I run a family back office of our investments. And so I'm a leader in every category. And so I'm massively blessed with the burden of leadership.
That's awesome. And for those of you guys who are looking at his background, yes, you do see 2 Inc. 5000 plaques and 2 ClickFunnels plaques back there. That is to tell you first and foremost, without even knowing of the business people, you guys should know that's a big deal. Those are big deals. Now the Inc. 5000 plaques, so that's 19 and 20, or what years were those?
Yeah, that's 19 and 20. And we're, awesome. I believe we've probably hit our mark for the next list here. So it might be 3 years in a row running on that. And yeah, those are the 2 recent years of the last 2 years of the list. Yep.
That is absolutely awesome. Well, let's jump into it. What got you into, business as a whole? Because for almost 20 years, you've been doing this. What is this like did your parents have businesses with the entrepreneurial bug kind of generations to come? Or are you a first generation? What happened there?
I'm a first generation business person. My story starts with a poverty mindset. I would have broke out of the impoverished mindset that would have really grabbed my parents and they would have struggled in captivity with poverty as a mindset. And so it lived in our lives. And, as a old teenager, young adult, I just wanted something different. And so I'm quite thankful to have broken out of that cycle of behavior. They're loving people and they're no longer alive, but like their story's real, that impoverished mindset, it dictated kind of our family and us and what we were. And I just remember wanting something different. Not all of it were for good reasons. I just wanted something different.
Yeah. And so when it comes to that kind of impoverished mind, that scarcity mindset, what about it kind of really impacted your life? Is it just what you saw are seen on the daily basis, or what is it that really impacted you that said, you know what, I want to be different?
Really early on, I look back now and I realize that I was given some gifts in my way I am as a person and what my personality set is, that I have a general, at my core, I don't like to be told no by someone who's not allowed to say yes to me. And so at my core, I have this in my fiber, and that's just something that I think that was given to me. I also think it was something that I would have learned over the beginning part of my life. Like I'd walk into situations and our family name and what we did, I would watch people openly gossip or talk about us. And so I would have lived with a chip on my shoulder. And some of that was developed out of shame. And some of that was developed out of this like core part of my being that like I wasn't going to be defined by that. And so
Awesome.
I would have broke out of it. And I at my core, like I would always wrestle with that. Now I've learned to mature through that, Mike. Like I've had to, like some of that chip on my shoulder meant I wanted to always do it by myself. And so I was going to do it in spite of. And so my story early on was like, you know what? I did it on my own. I no one's help. Well, that's not true. I had a lot of help along the way. And as I matured, I was able to see a lot of that help with a better perspective on it.
Wow. That's an awesome story. And I mean, talking about story, I don't think a lot of people understand the power of your story because like you said, in the beginning, you could have easily been that guy, right? The lone wolf and the proud, but to be able to say, you know what? No, I had a lot of help. Talk to us. Who are these people who are the kind of people that you had around you that did begin to kind of help and prop you up and kind of point you in the right direction?
Yeah, it comes in so many different categories, but the first and foremost at the top of that list was my grandmother, and she lived into her 90s. So for most of my adult life, this woman busted my chops. She, like, whenever there was a chance to tease me, she did, but she obviously saw some fiber in my personality where I could take it. Well, whenever capacity, she just was a great version of loving me unconditionally. Well, she pushed me. She just didn't like, she loved me with like you can do better, that kind of love. And there was like this integrity attached to all the things she did. Well, she stands out there. But I will tell you, as a young man who was broken and I was lost, my now wife was another person that the Lord used in my life to like wake me the freak up. And so Debbie and my grandmother are probably right at the top of cherished people. I would say even angels to me who have literally were used to course correct what could have been an entirely different story. And then I've actually had along the way mentors. I had a mentor in law. I'm a lawyer by actual profession. Wow. I don't practice law anymore for others, but I had a lawyer who would have really pushed into some of my early development. There was a pastor who wasn't actually my pastor, who became my friend when I lived in Buffalo, New York, and he spoke a lot of very direct, truthful things to me. And so when I think of certain characters that they were raised up at the right time in my life to really help guide me when my paths weren't as straight as I thought they were.
Wow. No, I absolutely love that. I actually wrote a book called 100% Me Mom, and it talks about all the women who have helped to make me the man that I am today. And so I definitely champion the women. So I love that your grandmother and your wife are at the top of that list. That's awesome. So when it comes to business, I understand that you're kind of a lawyer by trade, and I'm guessing you went to college and the bar and all that stuff that I have no real idea about. I hear that it's not
I did
easy.
all that. Yes, right.
What took you away from that? Because when people hear someone has actually had those accomplishments, went through the schooling, it's kind of one of those things like, well, I'm in it. I'm kind of going to do this now because of the time and the money and the effort. What made you go off into entrepreneurialism instead of sticking with, hey, I want to be in a courtroom defending someone, all day, every day?
I think professionals have two downward pressures, regardless of the role you sit as a professional. You have this expectation to always be available, and you have this expectation to always be right. Well, in phase one of my law practice, the passion that's built within me, I bring passion to so many things. I could be passionate about a bowel movement, but I was more invested in your problem as the client than you were. And so that first version of my law practice literally, I will say this, almost physically killed me. And it became the mistress that I didn't want. And so I saw this opportunity to grow businesses that are bigger than me. And so I wanted to take that discipline and skill set and build a product and or service companies that really weren't centered around me. Well, version one of my law practice was all centered around me being the hero, me being Midas. And that needed to change. And I'm thankful that that did change.
Wow. So understanding that you've been in this for almost 20 years, and on the business side, you're a lawyer before that. How quickly Or, I mean, not so quickly. I'm assuming it had to be quickly, though. Did you discover that, hey, this phase one journey is not where I'd like it to be going? I seem to care more than these clients and the individuals to making that shift. How quickly did that happen?
I've come to realize that almost everything takes twice as long as you believe it's going to take. And
Yeah.
if you look back, it probably took twice as long as you remember it taking. And so two things. I love the law. I actually have a heart and mind. I'm a craftsman. I've developed an expertise in the law, specifically around corporate formation, taxation,
Okay.
kind of business development, deal flow. I love that stuff. I'm a junkie for the Constitution. That's like a side hustle thing of
There you
mine.
go.
I love that stuff. But I quickly also realized that I have a mind. I'm very risk tolerant. I took those skills and brought it into business acquisition growth. And
Mm,
so I even owned my law firm at the end of my law practice. And so
wow.
I was destined for a career in business and in entrepreneurship. I just so thankful to have spent the early years of developing a craft into how to be a business lawyer.
Yeah,
So I'd
because
say, to answer your question, I'd say that was like a 6 to 10 year journey that
okay.
at the end of that eighth, ninth year, it looked really fast when I transitioned out of my own law firm into a digital internet company and then been on that run since '07.
Wow. Because that's one of those things that I don't know if society tells us, but something gives us this kind of understanding or misunderstanding that when we start toward a thing, we have to see it through to completion. And that there are no changing or pivoting. Like a pivot seems almost like a weakness. And so many people, they sit in that kind of drudgery of work or profession or, whatever that is. So I applaud you for making that change. Now, when it comes to that first business outside of, I mean, whatever you can tell me, what did that look like?
Mike, I'm an open book. Whatever good question you can ask, I'll provide a good answer. So
Hey, I understand NDAs and such. So I'm like, hold on, let me make sure how much you can tell me. But yeah, I'd love to know what was that
anything you want
first
to know.
launch?
So, but I'm thankful to live a life that now at this point is not double-minded. I don't live one way
Mm,
off the microphone and another way on it. There was a time where I can tell that story where I would have lived a duplicitous life, but my story is my story. And so the more I can share it, so I can encourage other people how to work through their story, I'm an open book. And,
amen.
I will find humility and empathy along that process, but I'll tell you anything you want to know that, like short of hurting someone else. So
There you go.
that's part of why I do this. I don't do this to amplify a message towards me. I want to help. I love entrepreneurs. I love entrepreneurship. I love people who are out there trying to make a difference. So I'm on these shows for that reason. And so actually is on that point before I answer the question, my team created a gift page at fullyaccountable.com/100 me for 100% me, but just 100 me, where they can get a gift page. We'll look at our books, our best-selling books, and resources on things that you can do in operating your business. And so we want all those to have you guys to have all
Wow.
that. And the only thing holding you back from doing it is taking the step to go get it. And so one of the reasons I told you that was, one, I love helping. Two, I really do truly care about this part. But I also talk about my journey in that book, The CEO's Mindset. And one of those things I talk about is that early journey where I made the transition out of my law practice into the digital world. And my first move was into a digital publishing company. A partner of mine who now today is my friend, but then was my business partner first, well, actually was first my law client. And then I
Wow.
was helping him fix things that he didn't know how to do in business. Then we became business partners and we went on a quick run of doing e-publishing, where we were doing electronic downloads of books before you even use the
Wow.
word like PDF or books that
Yeah,
are digital in nature. And so we were a publishing arm and we sold mostly in the work from home category way before it became this really cool thing. And so
exactly.
that was my first, we talked the business opportunity from home, and that was my first venture. I didn't even know what a
Wow.
domain name was or how to host a website or any of that stuff. And that sent me on a journey that people can see in my portfolio about running internet businesses. And I have lived deep dove in the digital world ever since that first one.
Wow, that is awesome. And guys, I will go ahead and put that link down in the show notes. So if you are interested in seeing that, thank you so much, Vinny. That is just very gracious of you. And wow, I appreciate that so much. It'll be in the show links, guys. So when it comes to e-commerce, because like you said,
Yep.
if this was back in the '06, '07, I mean, honestly, I was just graduating in '06. And so I didn't know, right from left. I didn't understand much of anything. When it comes to e-commerce, though, what
Yep.
made you step out into the electronic universe? I mean, because yes, the internet was around, and yes, there was the MySpaces, and I mean, Facebook was kind of coming up then, but there wasn't a whole lot to really go after. We didn't have the huge Amazons and the like. What caused you guys to take that step?
I'm so thankful. I had an awesome partner and he's a friend. But we both of us had a unique skill set that we're problem solution marketers. We'd see a problem.
Mm.
And if the solution didn't exist, gosh darn it, let's go create it. And I'm so thankful that at my core, that's kind of how I'm built. That's actually what happened with Fully Accountable. Like I had a large health supplement company and I could not have any of my large accounting team who was dealing mostly with affiliate commissions and stuff. No one could tell me what it cost to acquire the customer. And I literally lacked any financial intelligence personally. And so one day I had enough. I'm like, wait a minute. I don't know this stuff. It's more about the money I keep in my pocket than the gross revenue I drive in the company. And we had razor thin margins at the time. And I found out that a company like ours should have like a 22% margin and we had like an 8% margin. Well, I became like that ferocious dog mad at the 14%. And I needed something to change. And so even 2014, when I'm like, we're changing this, the technology didn't exist. I'm like, we'll build it then. And so now, fast forward 6 years, people are like, oh, that's such an amazing idea. Well, back in 2014, everyone thought we were nuts.
Yeah. Wow. And that's the thing. I mean, when it comes to individuals like yourself, and I put that at the top of the list with like the Steve Jobs and the innovators that we know of today. That's the greatest innovators of all time. You definitely are really fitting into that. And as we're coming, I would say coming out of this whole COVID-19 era. I don't know if we're coming out of it yet, though.
I don't
But
think so.
now I'm really beginning to see the importance of what you do, because you have been around as Fully Accountable before people were really looking at this whole work from home, remote,
Yeah.
everything. How has that impacted your business?
Oh, I mean, good night. Like we're going to have more awards on that wall behind me, and we actually have a whole lobby with awards for workplace and stuff. We're growing in every category, Mike. Like
Jeez.
we're on the right line of this. We're on the right side of that mark that's been drawn in the sand, and we were positioned correctly for this. Even the hybrid idea of working in and out of the office, like, culturally, we have homies. Those are the people that are on our team full time that work from home. And we gave them a fun name. One of our homies named themselves the homies. But we've been running a hybrid model since the minute we came out of the egg. Now, everyone thought we were nuts. And by the way, our number one objection up until March of this past year was, I love your service, but we would love to have that in our building. Well, that objection is gone, Mike. Now we're actually dealing with our motto, time, money, and resources. Can you win back your time? Can you buy something at a fraction of the cost you can pay for yourself? And who can have more resources for the money investment you're making? And so because of that, we're positioned ridiculously well in this market. Now, you go back to 2017, and if that happened to us in early 17, we are probably, well, I'm probably not on the show, but we're also probably having a tragic discussion that we got overtaken by some of this. Direct to consumer is changing. Behavior is changing. The adoption rate of people buying online has gone from like somewhere around 10%. They believe that we're going to be at 30% when this is all said and done.
Sir.
Ridiculous what's happened to us in almost what the world would call overnight. And so the digital revolution is a real thing. And it's probably no longer a revolution. It's becoming probably a category that's going to at some point look mainstream.
Yeah, most definitely. Wow. Wow. And that's what really makes me curious about your business, your whole business model, your business structure, is the simple fact that you had the foresight to put it into place before even, I mean, no one could have ever thought. I mean, we didn't think even while coronavirus was coming out, it was going to look like this, that it would impact us this much. And so
I'm not even sure I saw that. By the way,
that was my next question.
In fairness, what I always knew was that buying behavior was going to be greater and greater in a digital world as the technology improved. the reason why what might have been a 2025 or even later event that's now, if you follow some of the theorists of behavior, some of the outer projections would say we've compressed 10 years of behavior through this pandemic. I actually tend to agree with that because this massive habit change. And so what would have happened pre-pandemic was direct to consumer was all about convincing someone to buy online.
Yep.
Well, we don't have to convince someone any longer. Now we need to be profitable in doing it. And so that's the change. And so we've compressed. My guess wasn't whether or not this was going to happen. My theory was that online behavior was going to be massive. It just happened a lot faster than anyone could argue.
Right. And what I know is that mindset, that the very thing that made you feel that way and think that, you can take that into really any industry. So what made you get into the actual accounting side of things and e-commerce?
Yeah, so I was solving a problem, right, Mike? So, I mean, if we're back to what's core to me, I had a problem. I had a health supplement company that was large. We had a woman's face cream that was killing it in multiple channels, including some retail. And, I literally would have loved to, at the early days, sell the business, and all those things that everyone wants to do to set out to run a company. We're doing, north of $3 million a month in gross revenue. And I'm keeping razor thin margins, just enough to keep the business running, and a little bit for lifestyle, not much, but a little bit for lifestyle, running this almost $40 million plus company. And I have barely anything in there. Well, it was during that process that was like, wait a minute, we can fix this. I don't need to be an accountant to fix this. Good night. I'll just hire the technicians for that. Yes. And so I'm a marketer and a product person who built a service company. Now it bled out of me. And once I fixed it for us and our team, we felt this dutiful obligation to do it for others. So my journey this last little bit of my journey hasn't been like, I'm in my zone. I felt this need to step up and solve a problem. And gosh darn it, it was super hard to build. Now I'm at a phase where it may be super hard to break, but up until this point, it was super hard to build. And we've been doing that. And like our mission is to help 10,000 companies double their profit margin. And to get there, it's not going to involve every one of them being our clients, which is why we give stuff away and empower people to do this. But, only 7% of companies ever see $1 million in annualized revenue. Well, most companies, 4 out of 5, go out of business because they lack the ability to manage cash flow correctly. So if we can win that battle on that front and help entrepreneurs win there, more people are going to win at this adversity of running a business.
Wow. I love your passion behind that. So that's why I had to ask again, just a little bit differently, get you going just a little bit. No, that is awesome. I love your passion behind that. So when it comes to your, I don't want to say your target customer, but the people that you guys serve the most, what does that look like? Are these businesses with a certain kind of gross revenue like we were talking about, or are these small businesses, medium-sized businesses? Who is your kind of ideal customer?
It's interesting what people define as small, medium, and large. It's interesting to hear everyone's opinion on that. And so our clients are doing $1 million in revenue and above. Okay. Our sweet spot sits between 3 and 30 million. We have clients that are doing above 30 million. We have a few unicorns doing 9 figures. I call them that because I really believe at some point you help transition a company out and build out resources they need for other problems they're trying to solve. But that's where we live, and we live in the e-commerce and digital world. That's our client base. I'm telling you right now, if everyone wants to listen to this thing from me, you want a secret to massive growth, niche down and you'll scale up. I don't serve outside that industry. We could, but because we don't, we are literally the leader in our space, in size, in impact, in everything. And I only have to train my team on one language, the digital language.
Wow, that's beautiful. We actually did a couple episodes back an interview with one of the coaches, and that's what he does. He focuses on purpose and niche. And so yes, these listeners, they know that. And so that is awesome. That is awesome that you just—
It sounds good. It's just so hard to do when your business is smaller because you're like, oh my gosh, someone wants me to work with them. And I recognize that struggle. But at some point, you got to take captive your thoughts and make them obedient to something. And if you really truly want to grow something bigger than yourself, there are certain places of which audience and clientele, niching them down is one of those. At the end of the day, when we reach 1,000 clients, we're going to be a massively large company.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
doesn't 1,000 sound like really small?
Well, it does. It does. Wow. Wow. And that's exactly it. I think I'm trying to even, since you mentioned it, how we kind of categorize small to mid-size or big business. A lot of times we think of it through the lens of employees. Well, of course, this person has this many employees, so they're small. This person has this many employees. So, but the way that you are breaking it down and who you help and how you help them, that's really unique. And I love that. I really do like that. And so guys, I hope you're really enjoying this. I hope you are seeing not only the expertise in the mastery of Vinnie Fisher, but also his heart to serve people, because that's really where the growth comes from. When you find that niche and you're able to truly serve, because I've had podcasts. I mean, you guys won't see them on my channel with individuals who just didn't care, just, it all came down to lining the pockets. And that's why the podcast never aired. But this one right here, this is someone who is doing it right. And if you have a small business, if you're just simply wanting to learn, I mean, Vinny and his company are giving us things for free. So please go out into those show notes and be sure to reach out. Speaking of reaching out, Vinny, what is the best way for our listeners to reach out to you and your company?
If they're looking to just like absorb more of the content that we produce, you can find Vinnie Fisher at social handles across all the platforms, or at least some of them. If you want to reach out to us, there's two ways. You can just go to fullyaccountable.com and click on the buttons that let you connect to us. You can also write us an email, wecare@fullyaccountable.com. Like when all this stuff started and we've had this massive upheaval in the world, we wanted to be an agent of change and help. And so we will say this: not everyone should be our client under the concept of niche and scaling and focusing on who truly is your client. We do want to help people get in the right place. You'd be amazed at the amount of requests we get to that email. And so please, if nothing else, take advantage of our free gifts at fullyaccountable.com /100me. You'll have all the resources to be successful. And the reason that you would hire someone like us is to go faster with experts.
Come on. Come on. Wow. That's awesome. So as we land this plane here, what is one, if you were to kind of go off the grid for a little bit, I like to equate it to Batman in the Dark Knight, the first movie where, he's running from the cops at the end and, he goes off the map until,
I just
Dark
watched
Knight
that the other
Rises.
night. Great movie. I love Batman.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But if that were you, if you were saying, you know what, I got to go off the grid for a little bit, but I have one kind of line of encouragement for your watchers, for your listeners, what would that line of encouragement be?
We have a lot of noise right now, and depending on where you look at the perspective of a lot of the disruption and potentially even things as offensive as propaganda and all kinds of noise going on, it's coming in every direction. And I would say that one of the things is you pay attention to the language you use about yourself. Like one of the things I learned early on in business, how awful I was to myself because out of the mouth flows the heart, and the way I spoke about myself openly and inside of my head was awful. And so as soon as I realized and was able to pay attention to that and start breaking some awful agreements I made with myself about abilities or who I am or shame, it literally changed my perspective of worth and my ability to love others. Like I couldn't accept love. And so because of that, I lacked the capacity to love others. And so the way I say it now is I was only able to love others at the ability of how much I was able to accept love. So if you want endurance and perseverance, all these things, I would very much encourage you to do the work of paying attention to the language you use about yourself.
Wow. That is powerful. That is powerful. Because yes, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth does speak. So thank you so much for your time, Vinny. And thank you so much for your heart. There's not a lot of people that, we see in this world right now, because everyone's talking about the problems of the world. No one's coming with the solutions. No one's coming with the heart to serve people. And so I thank you so much for your example. I know that myself and these listeners, we're going to take that example. We're going to run with it. We're going to go into the show notes and be sure to look you up and definitely see how we can kind of cross paths and help continue to push what you have as well, because you are the kind of business owner that I love on this platform. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for just everything that you're giving us in this podcast, sir.
Mike, thanks for having me. And one other thing, we have a motto here that I probably use in my parenting as well as in the office: use your words. So when I found out that we were going to be connected with Speak Audibly, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like my jam. Use your words. If anything else, learn to communicate clearly which then ultimately turns into effectively. And so speak by taking captive your thoughts, but speak as you recognize your heart. And more leaders who would embrace those two things, I'll tell you, we can change the world, man.
Wow. Wow. Well, on that note, guys, wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Vinny. Guys, my name is Coach Mike T, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you have, be sure to subscribe. And again, go in those show notes and reach out to Vinny. Guys, we love you guys. We care. Remember, speak audibly. You have a voice. Let it be heard. Talk soon.